Ooh, okay, okay. We live. We hot. We hot.
Right. We got peace, all. Shalom, everybody. Erev Talk. Of course, this is movie Innerstandings with brother Zach and then brother Lo and Aki Antonio and brother Zach. I always put y'all two names together because of the Shema. Y'all the tag team.
Bruh. Yeah, we the tag team, and then when something bad go down, I'm the scapegoat. You know, cause somebody
Uh,
snitching on me.
yeah, use the smoke pellet. Yeah, man. But tonight we're going to be looking at Doctor Stone. Which is a good anime, for people who are just getting into anime. They may not know what it's about, but they want something different. Than, usually, when you hear about anime, you hear about or you think about shonen anime. Shonen is like it's what you would call a genre, and it basically deals with stories geared towards young teenage boys. And because of that, it usually centers around some sort of power system and a lot of fighting, and screaming. Fighting, screaming, and powering up. It's usually like a power fantasy. Yeah, exactly. It's usually like a power fantasy for young boys, teenage boys coming up. And not to say that this story doesn't have fighting or any type of improvement or screaming. We get a lot of screaming from one of our characters who we'll get to in a minute. But it's based around science, which makes it a bit more unique than your standard shonen, which is normally, more fighting based. There's a combat system, there's a big bad to beat. But this time they're using science to win. It's not really brawn. It's just technological advancement. So yeah, man, I really like this show, and yeah, the Morris, Cisco, and Ebert. Peace, Chief. Yeah, Chief always got the colorful commentary. Uh, but yeah, we have our main character Senku, who's basically a genius. He's raised by his father Byakuga, who is he came out with the spectacles. Brother Low went and got the specs. All right, let's
Yeah,
keep
you
moving.
already know who I'm is.
Yeah, so yeah, we have Senku, who's the main character, and he's basically a scientist. And I'd actually gotten a chance to go back and revisit Chief's video on how to do a breakdown. And one of the things that stuck out to me was when Chief spoke about enthusiasm. The character who's enthusiastic. Each character, when I was looking at this, I was like, well, they're all enthusiastic, but they're enthusiastic about different things. And one of the great things about the show is it deals a lot with nation building because you have to build a nation in this environment that they're in. It's not like some flowery thing that you could think about or talk about and then go back home and watch TV. Like, nah, this is it. You know what I mean? Nation building is the way of life. And you can see everyone's enthusiasm, which is like being in tune with the spirit of the Most High. You can see everyone's enthusiasm sort of interact and complement one another. Of course, Senku is very enthusiastic about science. That's his enthusiasm, and you can see as characters come in, they're very clear on what their primary motivation is. There's not too much what am I doing in life? Where am I going? It's not really none of that. It's just, all right, this is the situation. Okay, you could do the thing. All right, you do that thing. You do that thing. It's very clear cut what we need to do. Um, so it starts off with everyone in school, going about their daily life. You can see Senku and his best friend Taiju. Like that's his school uniform. And we see his best friend Taiju, who is basically trying to confess his love for his high school crush or whatever, Yuzuria. Yeah, you can see you rolling your eyes, low. Brother Lowe was talking about the simping.
Simping, simping. Oh,
Yeah, man. Reel it in, Lowe. Yeah, man. So you can see him, trying to get ready to confess his love, and he tells Senku, yeah, I'm getting ready to confess my love to Yuzuriel and whatever. And he's like, all right, it's about time. He calls him, you big oaf, because he basically like he has enthusiasm, but he doesn't have all of the comprehension that Senku has. But he's just enthused by the fact that Senku is so good at what he does, and he thinks it's so cool. So his enthusiasm is basically his loved ones and being there to defend them. Um, we can see that him going to Senku, letting him know this is what I'm planning on doing. Senku kind of messes with him, like, all right, but let her drink this potion and she'll fall in love with you 100%. And he's like, nah, I don't do that. He's real, no cheating type of person. So he wants to do everything fair and square. So he goes to, confess his love to her. And as he's doing so, he sees this green light in the distance. And as this green light starts getting closer, you start to see he stands in between Yuzuria and the green light, and you can see like everybody starts turning to stone, and you can like the animators could have just did that, but they actually made the choice to show everyone's internal thoughts, like the confusion that was happening. You can see planes falling out of the sky. Civil human beings just came to a halt, like literally. They came to a complete stop, and they're there for like thousands of years. They're stuck in that petrified state, and it brings to mind what Chief had also another point that Chief had made, which was stay awake, which was one of the main things that Senku and Taiju were thinking. Stay awake, don't fall asleep. Senku's thing was I have to keep track of time, whereas Taiju's thing was I have to stay awake so that I can tell this girl that I love her. Give it a second. Lowe's gonna roll his eyes again. Just give it a second. Yeah. So they wake up. Well, we cut to Taiju waking up in this cave. And as he wakes up, he breaks out of the stone. Thankfully, takes the time to get dressed, sort of. He does the whole Adom thing, just gets some leaves. And he goes out, and Senku finds him. You get to see some of the comedy, which is another thing that Chifa touched on with having moments of play. You see him rushing to hug Senku. He's like, "Yo, don't hug me with your thing hanging out. You can save that for later. Let's get you some clothes first, bro. I'm happy to see you too." you know, but he basically gives him the rundown of what's going on, shows him like the camp that he had built from scratch, which is like a testament to Senku's genius because he's about that action. He doesn't just keep a bunch of information in his head. He's always experimenting because Senku's enthusiasm for science comes from his driving desire to be an astronaut. He wanted to go to the moon, and I'm gonna pause there and tag in. I'm gonna tag low in.
I. Well, um, when it comes to Senku being science and things like that, that was the coolest thing about him. Even in high school, you see him where in the science lab. um, and another thing is that all of them are childhood friends. They all grew up together, and but Senku's always been into science and things like that, and it's that science that, if you ask me, propels him to action, in the in the stone world, you know. Because one thing you see, after thousands of years, what happens? Nature comes back and reclaims, skyscrapers and things that will probably be seen as wonders. They fall apart, all given away to nature. you know. Um, and you could say that, everybody basically turned to stone. It's just like a freezing or a hell. You know what I'm saying? If you ask me, because everybody, it's just time just stopped. The nature and the world kept going, but for every human being, time just stopped. Even animals, well, not all animals, were affected by that. Now, at first, you see increments of it happening by Taiju just looking with other classmates at a bird being frozen in stone, and that's how they know it's happening. But they don't really connect the dots until it actually happens. But one thing you also see or understand is that um, when Taiju wakes up, you see, Senku's already there. He's clothed and everything. And then you go into seeing how he woke up earlier than him. You know what I'm saying? But he was counting, where everybody else is probably freaking out because they're not the only ones, as you see throughout the season, they're not the only ones frozen in stone, and they're not the only ones that actually has movement of thought in that sense. You know what I'm saying? As you meet other characters, but he's just counting, like how long have I? He knows verbatim, to the T how long they've been frozen in stone, and then he puts together on what basically the catalyst or the elixir that actually helped them to break the stone. Don't ask me the scientific term for it because I got it wrong. I said sulfuric acid, but it's nitric acid. I knew it wasn't acid, so couldn't have said I was that good at science. But yeah, so you see them where one has the information, Senku, Taiju puts in those thoughts and the actions. Like he said, you're the brains, and basically, I'm the muscle. You know what I'm saying? They each know their roles, and they basically, as being friends, you see them form community in that sense because they know their roles, and they're reciprocal off of each other. You know what I'm talking about? By those roles, if you ask me. I don't know. Sovereignty says Cinco actually means pioneer. So I kept thinking how focused he was on scientific innovation and then rebuilding. Constant. Yeah, yeah. And what? All he was doing was what? Pioneering. Even if it's like I told Master Antonio when we was talking about it, all he's pioneering, but he's reinventing the wheel in a sense where it's already been done, but nobody will remember it in this world or in this time period, or what these things were, so he's going and he's taking all the information that he has, and he's basically zooming through the ages, in the sense. He said, like I said, to man, too many years to get out the Stone Age. You gonna zoom, right by, to get what we want, to reclaim what we lost. So, man, it's a lot, with this one, but it's good. It's fun, and the science just keeps you enthusiastic because when I got into Stone, Dr. Stone, I got into the mangas first. There was no anime first. The anime wasn't made yet. So I just got off of it because of the art. I bought it because of the art and it was cheap. I was like, okay. Bought 4 volumes. I was like, ooh, this is good. You know what I'm talking about? It's very interesting, especially when you get to the scientific parts. So I mean, hey, we can talk. Look, we're gonna be going on and on about this. So go ahead, Master Antonio.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. I liked. Oh, there is another point that you had made when we spoke about the science, he didn't always succeed on the first try, which I thought was a good touch to it too, like especially when he was making the wine, because I know how to make wine. I know how difficult it could be depending on the type of vessel you use, and he was basically, like you said, he's reinventing the wheel, because even though it's been done before and he's read about it, he's never had to, like, this is guerrilla science, like he doesn't have a lab per se. He has to build his lab from scratch. He has to use what's around him, and his knowledge of elements and flora and fauna. Um, Even with the nitric acid, like he could tell, okay, this is what caused it, and he knew that. I think is nitol when you mix nitric acid with alcohol. That part stuck out to me because I was like, huh, because I was thinking about all the stuff you could do with alcohol. You know, um, but that's what makes it fun, because you can make this stuff. Everything that you see in the show, you can do, and it's to the point where they have to put out disclaimers and warnings, like, yeah, this will work. you know, if you try to make, like we can see later, they make gunpowder. If you try to make gunpowder using these mixtures, it's gonna work. So be careful. you know. But we could see them basically working on this revival fluid. And the piece that you had touched on about the animals, for some reason, and this is one of the draws to the show, because you don't know what caused this, they call it the petrification. You don't know what caused this petrification in the first place. You don't know who did it, but the only clue that we have to go on is one particular animal was affected by it, and that is swallows. And nobody knows why, but that was like their first test subject. You can see Senku when he's working on how to put together this what they call a miracle fluid. Like he has a bunch of swallows, all of them like test subjects, and he's trying to work to get closer and closer. So you can see like he didn't just figure this out right away. He didn't do the classic anime genius thing where he pushes his glasses up on his nose and just explains everything right away. Yeah. You see all the sheen on the glasses and everything. No, he didn't do that. He had to trial and error. Everything he did in this world was trial and error. And even though he had a relatively high success rate, he usually fails at least once every time he tries something, which was a good touch. And what else was I going to say? Oh, in terms of them waking up and actually discovering this miracle fluid, they actually work it out. Now here it is, they go to revive Usuria, right? And homeboy is simping again, can't wait to go and tell her how he feels. And yeah, exactly. Sister Marcia, don't try this at home. Um, yeah, he goes to tell her exactly how he feels. But on the way that they get attacked by some lions, which is something you don't consider, that zookeepers would be petrified. Maybe while they're feeding the lions, they get out and now they become apex predators who ain't got no humans around to hunt them. So they've been running around breeding. You don't know how many lions are around. We only see the couple so far, but they're in a tough spot because we can't kill no lions. So now they got to revive someone else. So this fluid that they work so hard to make, homeboy has to. You could see some of Tai's character that he had to go through, and he's like, yeah, we need to survive. Doesn't make sense saving this thing if I can't tell him how I feel. So his pragmatism is still based around the simplicity, but you know, they see someone who's known as Sukasa, right? His epithet, his nickname is the strongest primate high schooler, and he's basically like a UFC fighter, a teenage UFC fighter, unnaturally strong and athletic. And you get to see later on in the story, in Stone Wars, his motivation for becoming so strong. It wasn't like something that's mainly genetic. It was something that he really had to train and push hard for. And he has a super sharp um, mental focus, and he has a very singular um, he's very singular in his thought pattern. It's not like he doesn't consider other avenues of thought, but he's very decisive in that, nah, this is what we need to do. And that's it. Bottom line, this is what we need to do. And he's very firm on that. And you can see that when they revive him, like only his one eye is exposed, and his first line is, "What's the situation?" Very, very focused. As soon as he breaks out, kills lions with his bare hand. Obviously, it's anime, and this is the shonen aspects that I was talking about earlier. Obviously, he's not gonna one shot a couple of lions with his bare hands. But yeah, you can see exactly, Sister Sham. I wonder why only the swallows were affected. Maybe it's because they feed in the air or are global. We have no idea, and that's part of the mystery. you know, with Sukasa though, Senku makes a very valid point because he says we basically we don't know who we're reviving. For all we know, he could be a mass murderer. But they do it anyway. And sure enough, he's like, I see what I need to do here. He sees an opportunity because they have a new world. And one of the things that Chief had also brought up was questioning, right? You're on a quest and you're questioning your reality. And the reality that Sukasa is questioning is, do we need to bring these people back? Because a lot of these people, he has a thing about adults, which we'll see in a little bit. But a lot of these people, they don't necessarily, I don't think they need to get brought back. That was Sukasa's thing. We should create a new civilization based on the young and the strong. You don't need these adults to come through and start marking off borders and territory again, start fighting over it, start creating inequality, start a bunch of wars, destroying the planet. This planet finally had a chance to breathe. Why are we bringing these people back? He was like Agent Smith. These people are a virus. Why should we bring them back? But I'll let you touch on it from there, Brother Low.
Man, when you was just talking about Sukasa, wanting no adults, it reminded me of this movie. I think the only person that would know, because I can't remember the name of it, but I know Chief would know because it's old, and it looked like it was in the 70s. But it had Richard Pryor in it, right? And it was about these young like teenagers, and they overthrew the adults and basically started their own government. In a sense, it's hard for me to remember it. I only saw it once. I just remember Richard Pryor was in it. But they get to a point where they get about like 23, 25, and then the young look at them and it's like, that's old. That's yeah, but it sort of reminded me of that. But I would say, I think Sukasa's point was that, the adults were already corrupted, and they because of their corruption, they already messed up the world once, and that's why we got put into stone. So he's probably like, well, shoot, the strong and the young are the most viable option, you know. Uh, she would know, because it's all. But it's not old, Chief. It's just it's something in the 70s. So I knew you would know it because the movie was made in the 70s. I it looked like it was, at least, So I'm like, of course he would know what it is. I wouldn't know. I caught it on the tail end. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Got Rich Pryor in it. But he ain't making no jokes. So okay. but but yeah, that's his take on basically, or his, as you were saying, Master Antonio, his hypothesis on how to rebuild the world, in a sense, or to start anew in the stone world. I'm gonna get the young, and I'm gonna get the strong. Whereas Senku had a different a different hypothesis, and he tells you, I'm gonna use science, to rebuild what we lost and things like that. And as I was telling you, the first season is pretty much, it's sort of like ideology in basically preparation or actionatory preparation. And then Stone Wars is basically, that's the actionary debate right there. You know what I'm saying, between Senku and Tsukasa. You know what I'm saying? On who had the right idea, but they did it in action. You know what I'm talking about? Tsukasa had the strong. He had the physically talented and things like that. And Senku, he had adults. He had children. And he had science and technology. You know what I'm saying? So they both had different kingdoms, and we know um Senku's kingdom was science, you know what I'm saying? And look, they even had their own flag, you know what I'm talking about, which was a spaceship in the stars, you know what I'm talking about? And which was the flag when they were young. They got that when they were younger, so it became their standard, and you could say it became their brand and the standard of their kingdom, already, nation building right there. But at first, breaking Tsukasa out of stone was for necessity, because like we need a killer. We know Taiju is strong, but he's not gonna kill anything. You know what I'm saying? But we need somebody with a gun hand. You know what I'm talking about? We need somebody that do dirt for us to put it at work. And here comes Tsukasa. And they all knew him. They didn't even go to the same school, but his reputation was known. You know what I'm saying? As the primate, high school and whatnot, and things like that. And then you sort of see, who Tsukasa has on his team is those that had high reputation, highly talented, but they all had a sort of reputation in a sense, and where there was at in before the Stone World, in a sense, and that was interesting. So I mean, but yeah, it was just interesting, because one thing, Tsukasa was strong and he was a killer, but he wasn't no fool either. He was like, how you make that? How you how you make that revitalization fluid, or whatever.
Yeah, that part was real funny because when he asked him about it, this was like around the time when Senku, when they had their first point of tension, because Senku was basically letting, I mean, not Senku, my bad, Tsukasa was letting Senku know, all right, this is what I plan to do. This is what I think about what we should do. And that was like the question. That was like the main question, because it was like, all right, the opposite. Like I was talking to you about, we was talking about the scientific method, right? You make an observation first. So the observation was, okay, we've been given a clean slate. You know what I mean? Humans are basically on pause, and we have the option to either revive them or selectively revive them, or we have a choice to do, a lot of things, and what should we do? That was like the question. What should we do? And like you said, Tsukasa's hypothesis was we should revive the young and the strong, and build a generation of young, strong people who have a pure heart and sound mind. Whereas Senku was like, I'm going to revive every single person with science, So, uh, GPS is Wild in the Streets. Oh, that's a guess. Oh, that's a movie. But yeah, it was like that was like their preamble for their debate, and they went on to talk about it, and Senku was like, I ain't gonna let you do that. You realize, because Tsukasa takes someone's head off. He takes a head off a statue, and before he does that, he tells the story of he gives an inkling of why he's so against adults. He gives the story of his sister. What's her name? She was terminally ill. Mirai, that's her name. Mirai. I had to write him down. There's a lot of characters in this. But his sister Mirai is like terminally ill, and the petrification was almost like a blessing for him because she didn't age anymore. So she wasn't dying anymore. She was in a state of suspended animation. So he went to the seashore to get some shells for her, just to cheer her up, raise her spirits. This was when he was very young. And when he went to do it, there was this older man who basically was like, this is my property, and you taking shells off of my property, this beachfront property, that's stealing. So he basically beats him to a pulp, which of course would cause anyone to harbor resentment because he felt powerless. You know what I mean? And he wasn't doing anything wrong. He was just getting shells for his sister. So he took what he had left to his sister, and he resolved that he was going to get strong enough to protect her. Hence, him training to become stronger. He didn't join MMA for like fame or anything. He joined it because he wanted to get stronger. Like he was just a kid when he first joined, but he grew up in the ring, hence his physical strength. And the interesting thing is, just a side note, they have like they're like the pinnacle in their field, So Sukaza is like the height or the peak of physical performance, and then you have Senku was like a genius. He's the peak of mental capacity. And here it is now. These two have a conflicting ideology as to what they should do. And as the tension is building, and Senku is realizing I can't let him get a hold of this revival fluid because as soon as he does that, he's going to kill us. With his taiju a fluid to resurrect Yuzuria. So he just like, oh, come on, dog. You let the cat out of the bag. So now Suka-san knows that you can revive people. And it's like, okay, like you said, how you make that? So Senku basically tells them, well, it made no sense trying to hide it from you. Go to this cave in such and such a place. You're going to find a fluid that's leaking off the roof of the place. That's how we do it. And we basically collect it. So as he goes there, he's like, all right, I told him that we ain't got no more fluid, but we got to revive Homegirl quick, before he gets back. Like you said, he ain't no dummy. Super goes there, he looks at it, he's like, okay, it turns yellow on my finger. Huh, this is nitric acid. It's like, all right, this is, he's a problem. He's not like a dumb brute who was overly aggressive. He's super balanced, he's charismatic, and like he's well rounded. He's basically a threat. You know what I mean? And as they go through it, they come to a confrontation where Sukasa shows like I could take the three of y'all out anytime I need to, and they basically have to flee. And they go to this hot spring, and they start crafting gunpowder, which is another science bit that I like. I was there like, okay, what you need? You need what? All right, sulfur. What else you need? Like it was real interesting every time a science bit comes up. You know, um, they have a lot of real places like the Buddha statue, which is a real place, and they start moving on, and the first point of contact for each of them is like their complement. So Senku's first point of contact, who he meets other than Taiju and Yuzuria, is basically a warrior. So she has the physical strength to complement his brain. Whereas Sukasa, the first person he revives, is who we'll see later again, the mentalist, who's like a mentalist. He has a level of mental cunning. So you could see them already starting to mitigate their weaknesses. But we'll get to that. We have a cliffhanger to get to first, but I'll let Akilo, deal with that.
I'm about to say, what's the? Oh, what is that? A
Yeah,
cliffhanger? and because sometimes because I'm thinking I'm thinking more from the manga perspective sometimes, but like at first it's like this, Sukasa tries to uh get to Senku by saying, see my point of view. These adults, we don't need them. I'm a do the I'm a revive the strong, and we gonna create a new world out of this. But Senku's good at reading people, and he's like, man, once I give you this, you're gonna end up killing me. You're gonna let me. You can be like, I'm a problem. You're gonna see me as a problem. So, what does he do? He fakes his own death. You know what I'm saying? Um, his friends, they go along with Sukasa. You know what I'm saying? But Senku faces death, and then once everybody is away, you know what I'm saying. But his friends know that he's faking his death in a sense, and once everybody's away, he goes his own way, and then he
Kohaku.
Kohaku, yeah, Kohaku.
Yeah.
And here this
I told you I had to write the names down.
see, it's so many. Yeah, he meets Kohaku, and yeah, she is a warrior, and she's she's not one from the stone, from the world prior. She was actually born in the stone world. You know what I'm saying? And then he, not only meets her, but she takes him to her village. One thing is interesting about Kohaku. She does all this, physicality on dang on like heel wedges and stuff, but she takes him to the village, and they think he's a sorcerer, because they haven't seen nothing like this, or what he talks about. They don't know nothing about it. It's mythology to them. You know what I'm talking about? And he meets another, you say, scientific mindset, and Chrome, who's basically the sorcerer or shaman type. But all Chrome is just a guy that was inquisitive about things, and he had a scientific mindset. He's basically doing, it's like reinventing human beings. Basically doing what human beings, did, during the Stone Age. He questioned things, and he put things together, and he was learning as he went along. You know what I'm saying? But then he meets, Senku, and now he has somebody to guide him more along the way. He said, "Oh, you're a scientific mind, just like I am." Like he's like, "Come on, Crown, build this scientific world with me." Gets him on his side. You know what I'm saying? So both sides are acquiring people, and building community. You know what I'm saying? In a sense, but Senku knows not only science, but he also knows, you could say, politics and diplomacy, by how he gets people on his side, you know. But that's longer down the line. But yeah,
Yeah, man, for sure. He definitely like you said, he knows how to read people, and he can get to the heart of what a person wants, and he's able to manipulate those desires against them. Plus he knows a lot of things that they may not have been exposed to. So like you said with Chrome's whole thing was, I like Chrome too, because like he doesn't have a bunch of textbooks to explain to him the value of all of these things that he's gathering and collecting. But his whole thing was Kohaku's sister, Ruri. She was like the village priestess. And she was in charge of, passing down wisdom from generation to generation. Like every generation has a priestess. And my name is Precious. I just hear the chat. Peace and precious. Yeah. So you can see him basically gathering all this stuff, but he's doing it because Rui is terminally ill, and they don't know what's wrong with her. And I don't think is it tuberculosis or pneumonia. Like she has some curable sickness, and Senku got sort of diagnoses it. But as far as Chrome is concerned, I gotta gather as much stuff because there has to be something around here to cure her because he's in love with Ruri. Yeah, I see the gears turning, brother Luke. Don't worry, man, it'll come up. Yeah, it'll come up. But the first thing that they do is they start getting to first they get into like a science off, I guess. And Chrome is trying to amaze Senku, but not only does Senku know how he's doing all of this stuff, but he actually has like the name, the background. He's breaking down what, why, how you do it, you know. And he's like, oh, okay, that's that stone. All right, that's just static electricity. Oh, okay, you did that. And he's like, is there anything this guy doesn't know about? You know, so basically, like you said, he gets him on his side. So now he's got two players. He's got Kohaku and he's got Chrome. And before they met Chrome, they met with Kinro and Ginro, right? Or what you were saying were gold and silver. And they basically, because everyone has a stone-based name, you know, in this village. You know, I don't know what Kohaku means, but I do know that they have Kinro, they have Ginro, they have Magma, they have Chrome, they have Jasper, you know, they have all these different stones. You know what I mean? And Kinro and Ginro is like he's like he's like an Eshu type of energy. You know, they're both guardians of the bridge, and he's like an Eshu type of energy, like always chaotic. He's like a trickster. You know, he likes to play mind games with people, and Kinro is like the strict, no nonsense. You know, rules are rules. You know, yeah, rules are rules. That's it. That's his favorite line. You know, and oh, it was pneumonia. Okay, give thanks, Shamba Joy. Yeah, it was pneumonia. And basically, when they see all the science stuff that Senku can do, they're gonna get Chrome. And then once he recruits Chrome, you know, he slowly chips away at Kinro and Ginro's egos. You know, you would think that you couldn't bribe Kinro until he promises him a gold spear. And he's like, all right, just make it quick. You know, he bends the rules. And Senku just lets people out of the village because he's not allowed inside of the village as an outsider. You know, so he starts to build like um, a branch village almost. You know, like everybody, like there's basically a sorcerer living outside the village, and if you want to go outside and do something or learn something, he's there. And first thing he does to get some manpower is he makes ramen. Right? He teaches them how to make ramen from grass. Doesn't taste as good as the ramen from today's ramen, but was it Maruchan, oodles and noodles, but it tasted amazing to them because they didn't know anything about that type of food, and they were tired. Some of them were tired of eating fish, you know. So he got them that way, and he was like, "All right, everybody who ate ramen, y'all coming to work. Y'all ain't got to pay for it, but y'all working." And they're basically working on antibiotics for Ruri so that they could heal her. But as they're dealing with all of that, they see a mysterious figure, and he's like, "Oh, this ramen is really good. It would, it would really be good if I could wash this down with some cola." It's like cola, and of course it's the mentalist again, and he can deliver, well, not deliver a message, but basically Superstar ain't no fool. So he's like, "There's no way Senku's dead. Somehow I know he survived. That was way too easy." So he sends out again to scout to see if he's actually dead or not. And he basically he's like he's for himself. He's an opportunist. So he doesn't have any qualms about switching sides. He basically just goes with whatever side suits his purposes. And you would think that, he's just gonna just watch him and see if this is something that he's going to get along with or get on board with. But they put him to work too. You had ramen, you working too. you know. So, He's like, all right, how do you plan on doing all of this science stuff? If you only have so much manpower. And he's like, I'm gonna build a generator. He's like, what? you know, you're gonna build a generator in the Stone Age, but they do it. You know, which is even more science projecty. But you could see it over and over. All of the science stuff that Senku knows and is either put into practice or only knows in theory, like he gets it out. And at first, when they start to make the generator, they basically get Kinro and Ginro to manually operate it. And he shows them artificial light. But after a while, they actually start to come up with their own ideas, particularly Chrome. Chrome and oh boy, I gotta look at my notes. Oh, give me a second. Kaseki, that's his name. Kaseki is the old man, the old craftsman, who's basically like they were like a trio. You had the lead scientist, you had the engineer, and then you had the product designer. And they were just churning out all kinds of inventions and just selectively picking up all of these different inventions that humanity has put together. But they also had to do all of the steps before they got to that step. So they had like this video game skill tree kind of thing. But one of the things that's really key in this piece is you could see all of the things that are necessary for building a nation. And it wasn't something like, all right, we got all of the stuff. Now let's start. It was like, okay, we need to start with what we got. And then they were just recruiting people based on their abilities. You know what I mean? As soon as they met a problem they couldn't solve, they were like, all right, this person can solve it. Let's see if we could bring them on. They come on and be like, what y'all doing over here? Oh, okay, we're doing this, 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 this the plan here, and we're on this step, but we need you to do this, and you can see that with Kaseki with the glass blowing, but I'll pass it back to you for a little.
Yeah, he's doing the glass blowing and but it's not just about glass blowing, it's also about creating glasses for
Mm-hmm.
little melon. I call her melon head girl. you know.
I
Little
got
melon
you.
head. Yeah, see, little melon head girl. But not just her, but also for Kimro, because he can't see, but he gets glasses as well. But it is like a video game tech tree because you have to work out these steps and they go by them increment by increment. You know what I'm saying? At first, they pounding out copper and bronze and things like that, and even them making swords. Because the villagers they work with stone. But then you got Senku and he's like, you don't gotta do all that. I'll show you how to make a katana, and things like that, and metal shields and whatnot. So you already see that they're working with metallurgy in order to get through to certain things that they want. Like you were talking about them finding out antibiotic, or as they call it, panacea. Say, and I'm in the story. Just to help out Ruri. Because she's basically the lore keeper. You know what I'm saying? And of course, Chrome is in love with Rory, but at the same time, unlike somebody we know, he's actually putting, that passion he probably has for her, and saving her into action and things like that and scientific things. He's actually doing something. Just not saying, I love you, I love you for thousands of years and stuff like that. Unlike some people we know, but he's actually doing something, he's actually putting the action into it. And he ain't even stepping to her without no plan. But but yeah, but you see them making ramen, but like I said, Senku knows how to read people, and when Gen comes, and he's a mentalist, and one thing, he was on TV. That's how Senku knew who he was. You know what I'm saying? But him knowing, about I don't call things cola. I call it pop. Knowing about pop and stuff like that. So he's like, yo, if you can make pop for me, man, I'll be on your side. I'll switch sides, and it's just that little thing, that little, I would say, nostalgia for the their old lives, that gets them on Senku's side. You know what I'm saying? Because Gen ain't the only one that's going to happen to, but because um Senku has more than one skill, and he's able to put that skill into action. He's able to switch people over that would have been enemies to now being his allies in that sense. That's why I say he's diplomatic in that sense, because Genwon was some pop, but man, all was some pop. He's like, I could do that. It may not be the same thing that you're used to, but I make some pop for you, because that goes along with the tech tree. You know what I'm saying, that he has to go along with anyway. But you also see, with his with the things that he make, they're basically bare bones. It's not something very high end. You know what I'm saying? How he gets electricity. He waits for a storm and and for thunder and lightning and things like that in order to really make electricity. He's basically rigging things together, and it's working. You know what I'm saying? Because he doesn't have the luxuries of his old world. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with how he makes a cell phone. You know what I'm saying? It's it's not something that's really special in a sense. You know what I'm saying? But it works. You know. But yeah, I mean, you see that. You see even how he makes the first gas mask, because they got to go get sulfur, and the only way you could tell if you're in this, I guess, sulfuric mountain range is with Gimri's spear, because it's silver, and he uh basically well points his spear along, basically the sulfuric land, and once it turns black, he knows, okay, we got to get out of here, and we ain't gonna be able to get sulfur unless we have gas masks. So him and Chrome
Yeah,
create
man,
gas masks.
that was interesting in that he used like, I don't want to call it a bait and switch, but it was like, all right, he promised both of them, like, I'll give you a gold spear, or he promised Kinro, you can get a silver spear, or I always get them mixed up. But he's like, all right, you get a gold spear, you get a silver spear, but it was like Indian given in a sense, because he knew he needed them as ingredients anyway to do what he had to do. So even though one of them got a gold spear, he turned right around and used it as a lightning rod, which he knew he needed it for anyway. He was basically like, well, you can hold this for now, but I'm gonna need that again later, player. And he did the same thing with the silver spear. And he's like, all right, we got a silver spear now, but you're basically gonna hold it. So that was like their payment, you know what I mean, for what they got. So Senku's like a gent in a sense. He's like, I'll give you what you asked for, but it ain't gonna be like how you think it's gonna be. So they went into the sulfur springs, amongst the sulfuric acid, and they basically had to make gas masks. They made the gas masks, which were very, again, it's guerrilla science. You know, all right. So they make a gas mask, and they go into this sulfuric acid um, laden place, and you can see that, I think it's Ginro. Ginro is scared to go, so he has his character moment, and Kasuke has his character moment where he explains to him that, I know you're afraid, but fear is like inevitable. Like no one's immune to fear, and experiencing fear doesn't automatically make you a coward, because those boys are scared too, but they still win. So you get to, he didn't like tell him you have to go. He's like, well, you get to choose what type of man you're gonna be. And he thinks it over and he goes through. And he actually arrives there like at the last second to save Chrome before he falls into a vat of acid, basically. So they acquire the sulfuric acid that they need, and they get back to town and they start working on the panacea. Like you said, panacea is basically a cure-all. So they get the antibiotics, and now they have to get it to Ruri, and Senku looks at her, he diagnoses her and everything. He gives her the medicine. He's like, all right, it's basically going to take this amount of time, but she's definitely going to be cured. And she is, you know. But they have this tournament coming up that basically decides who's going to be the village chief. And the village chief automatically marries the current chief's daughter. So they go to this tournament, and they have like a whole arc where they're training for the tournament. And this is when they find out that Kinro needs glasses, because he can only his strikes are so shallow. That's what Kohaku keeps telling them, but they're only so shallow because he can't gauge distance. His depth perception is off. So Senku makes glasses for him, and after he makes those glasses for him, he significantly improves, and he's now strong enough to go up against the village jock, basically Magma, who's like he's physically the strongest, but he doesn't think in terms farther beyond, I want power, and the chief is the highest power, so I want to be the chief. Process. We've speaking about this. If he didn't have like an external enemy, he was basically going to wind up oppressing his own people. If he didn't know anything about Tsukasa. And yeah, they eventually revive Ruri, and they go through this whole thing where Chrome has to fight Magma. He's significantly weakened by Kinro, but he basically has to fight Magma, and he has to use science to win. So he uses Suika's lens from her glasses to set his clothes on fire, basically. And of course, Gin is there to help, because Gin basically he gets his cola. When he doesn't get the cola, he gets the promise for the cola, and he goes back and he feeds Tsukasa false information. And what helps him to sell it is that Magma comes through and he basically ambushes him at night, and he thinks he kills him, but what he does is, like, everybody fakes their death in this. Gin fakes his death. He has like a fake blood pocket, and he uses this, but he's still severely injured. So he's like, if you could promise me that you can make me a cola when I get good, well enough to go back, I'll feed Tsukasa some bogus story. Say that you're dead, but there's a village over there, whatever, and they attack me. And then once he recovers, he comes back and he helps them out during the battle, because Chrome needs Magma to stand still. And you can see again how everybody's talents playing off of one another, because they're not allowed to interfere, but they can still talk. So he gets in his head, gets him to stand still, and basically he sets his clothes on fire, and Magma loses. And the only thing they need to do now, because Magma's the biggest hurdle, is, all right, just everybody throw the fight so Chrome can marry Ruri and be the chief. But what happens is Ginro, being the SU energy that he is, he starts thinking about because Senku basically gives him like enhancement drugs. You know what I mean? He starts thinking of himself as stronger than he actually is. So he's like, I could be the chief and I can have all the women. It's like, you know what, Chrome? I don't think you need to be the chief. So he beats Chrome. Senku has to beat him. And now Senku is basically the chief by default. And Senku immediately divorces Ruri right after they get betrothed. But Ruri asks him an interesting question. She says, what's your surname? So he's like, what you know about surnames? And she basically tells him, he basically tells him, my surname is Ishigami. And she's like, interesting. I knew you were coming sometime. And she was like, welcome to Ishigami Village, because we never got the name of the village. So this village was basically put in place by his father, their ancestor. And it sends us into this backstory now of what was happening with his father when this whole petrification thing went on. Because, like we said earlier, he's an astronaut. He was in space when this thing happened. Him and 6 other people. I think it was 4 other scientists, himself, and a pop star who was basically Lillian something. Lillian Weinberg, that's her name. So Senku's father, Byakuga, basically introduced her to everybody. And he they allowed her to sing like the first live broadcast of a musical performance in space. And while they're up there, they see this thing happening on Earth where this green light is just washing over the planet. They can't contact anyone, so they're trying to figure out what's going on. And Byakuga's like, I'm going down there, you know. But the other gentleman, it's like a Russian scientist. What's his name? Shama. Shama Volkov. He's like, you ain't going down there with my. He always calls him old man. Like he's very straightforward and to the point and direct and pragmatic. But he has a soft spot for Byakuga just because of all the antics that he pulls. And he has a level of respect for him too. And he basically says, I'm going down there, but I'm going to need some people to go with me, And he goes down there, he takes 2 of the women down there, and they basically, they like, I don't want to say crash land, but they land in a way that they can't get out of the pod, So the other remaining astronauts have to go back down to rescue them. And they eventually all get to shore. They start a village, and they're like, we're going to have to start over, until we can figure out what's going on. And they start to realize, all of the technology that they rely on, that they can't necessarily reproduce. And what I kept getting reminded of during the course of the show was basically there was this documentary I watched about education in Finland. It's called the Finland Phenomenon. And one of the teachers was like, he was explaining to the interviewer, okay, what we have the students doing now is discovering the Pythagorean theorem. And he's like, you said discovering, not learning. He's like, yeah, they're discovering it. Because if you can't teach them in a way that they can actually reproduce it, you're basically going to teach them how to do it, but they don't know like how it works. They just know how to do it. It's like knowing how to type, but you don't know how a keyboard works. You don't know how to build a keyboard. You just know how to type. So they're in a space where, similar to Senku, they have to make do with the knowledge that they have. They can't go on Google right quick and be like, all right, how do you build a hut? They got to make do with what they got. And it's something that all of us have to consider. If something happens and you don't necessarily have all the creature comforts that you're used to, what are you going to do? Like, what do you have with you right now that's going to help you to survive? And it's similar to what Chief said during one of the Shimas that we did earlier too, where even if you lose everything, even if the kingdom burns down, as long as the king is all right, as long as the master of the house is all right, then the kingdom is still alive, because all of the knowledge that you need to run a kingdom is up there, you know, is right there. So you don't necessarily need the material stuff. You need to be able to reproduce it. That was something that Suka select, and it was what made Senku so scary. So I'll leave it. I'll tag it back to you.
Yeah. One thing, with Byakuga, he always believed in the son. He taught him things, and Senku's his adopted son, but they
You
they're like real
you
father and son.
need to put a look. I don't know if
Hmm?
it's just me, 'cause my connection has been funny.
What?
I don't see the icon saying you on mute, but I can't hear you.
I'm not on mute. Mm.
Can everyone hear him in the chat? If they can hear you, then yeah, it's cool.
We'll wait for Love Jones to say something.
Somebody put a one in the chat.
Can you
Guess we
hear
gotta
me?
wait for that alleged 20-second delay.
That delay? Okay.
I guess everybody else making ramen and gunpowder. We
I
got no
guess
smoke
so.
signal.
They okay. Deirdre
Okay,
said
everybody.
okay.
What?
All
Yes,
right.
we can hear.
Well,
Okay. If they can hear, then you good. Just for some reason, I can't hear. So I'm gonna leave and come back. All right.
okay. Okay.
All right.
So, uh, as I was saying, you know what I'm talking about. He always believed in the son. You know, even when they, make the village, he knows that, he's doing it for Senku. And he's like, Senku's gonna find a way out of this. I got faith in him that he'll come, he'll make it all right. He's gonna get out of this. You know what I'm saying? And because of that, um, he creates a message for him. You know what I'm talking about? On disc, for him to hear later on when he died. But they're the founders of the village. And one thing, Ruri says, because she says all these things, and he's wondering, how do what and she basically says, this is passed on from basically um I guess say village shaman to village shaman on these stories about the world before, but they just believe they are stories until she realizes that he's one of the founders son. So he's known, what I'm saying, he's been known, and his name has been carried on throughout the ages in that sense, and it's well, it's interesting because I always like this part because his father actually him and Lillian they sweet on each other, you know but Lillian dies, she dies of illness, what I'm talking about, but you can basically see the parents in the sense of those that survive, you know and you know she gives a last song on record, once they go to the grave of the founders pretty much, and he's able to play it, because it's basically like a record player, and because Senku, those signs, he's able to get the message, and hear the song and things like that, because his father's like, I really want you to hear this song, and whatnot. um And another thing was like in the village, his father was like the teacher of all the children in a sense. You know what I'm saying? And things like that. I also would say when it comes to that, a lot of the old ones died of illness. And it probably was simple illnesses that just like Ruri, with pneumonia, they died of simple illnesses because they didn't have um the natural insight or the herbal insight, or the medical insight that they had from the old world, so they died of really simple things, that could have been stopped, and they knew they could have stopped it, but they didn't have the resources, you know um but yeah, that part, that was a cool part, what I'm saying. But also then, once you have that part and things like that, that's when you get into the Stone Wars, Tsukasa's coming. They gonna hold out for winter. They ain't gonna attack, the village during the winter. But once that winter's over, it's gonna be a wrap. So, Senku and them that they're prepping for war, or prepping, for the attack, and things like that, and so they have a whole big game plan. One thing about Senku, he always got a plan in place. You know what I'm saying? He stays with the plan, and sometimes it's up to everybody else to catch up, and realize it. Like Chrome or even Taiju. Because at one point he hasn't had contact with Senku in basically in a year or whatever, and that's how the creation of the cell phone comes in, because he has to call Kaiju Taiju, about to call him Kaiju, but Taiju, and things like that, so everything is being used, to help them win the war. Everything's but help is being used to help them win the war. Even ramen, what I'm saying, that's, it's when it's like winning hearts and minds. You feed them, they'll come back and they'll think you're good people or whatever. Or with um with the last record that they had with Lillian singing, that's even gonna be put into play, and that's how he gonna get Single's gonna get a lot of people from Sukasa's side on his side, and then he's gonna use Gen to basically voice over Lillian to make people think that she's still alive, and that people in the West are coming alive and things like that, and they're getting things popping over there. They're not alone, which that's all propaganda, you know. But I mean, you have that, but it's interesting because that they have the scout, and Gen knows it's a gymnast, a gymnast, and she fights Kohaku, which is cool. Um, and things like that. And then you finally see them scouting, like Magna and Chrome are scouting Kohaku. I mean, not Kohaku's, but Sukasa's basically kingdom, or basically his base cave, because they're in a cave. They're like it's sort of like they're Neanderthals in the sense where they live in caves. They don't have nothing really built. They wearing furs and things like that. You don't even see that with Sekus. They done wearing furs and whatnot, but they still wearing furs. They don't they got stone weapons and things like that. But they're strong, what I'm saying? But they don't have, a lot of technology. They just have a bunch of brute strength. And then you sort of get how basically Senku is going to win a war, what I'm saying, in a sense, because he know who he's fighting, and also you get to see everybody else's genius. You get to see Chrome's genius, because Chrome gets captured. Chrome gets captured. But he uses science to break him out. He uses science to break him out.
That actually
And
brings
go
another
ahead.
character, Ukio. Ukio is the archer, and the only reason Chrome is able to break out is because Ukio is like, I'm switching sides too. He already puts this in his mind, and he gives Chrome like subtle hints that I'm not as down for the cause as you might think I am, because I could have killed you and your boy, but I didn't. You know what I mean? Because he had this thing where he didn't want anyone to die, and that was basically Senku's whole like tagline for the mission. No one dies from either side. He didn't want casualties. He wanted to win the war clean, which is why he didn't create a weapon. He chose propaganda. He chose the information warfare, and it's really interesting how both of them utilize these same rules, because here it is now. Senku's using information warfare, but um, Sukasa also has his information branch in that he revives a reporter, and the reporter is basically able to tell him who's who, and that lets him know who he should revive. He's only reviving the greatest of talents, and you can see that with basically the top three people in this kingdom. One of them being Hyuga, who we see when they create weapons. Hyuga the spearman, and then you also see Ukio, who's the archer. He's like number three. And Ukio used to be a sonar technician, so he has a really heightened sense of hearing, and he's really good with the bow and arrow. I don't know if he was an archer before or after, but he's really good with the bow and arrow. And you can see with what's her name, Homura, who was like the gymnast. She is loyal to Hyuga. She's not really loyal to Sukasa. So there's a lot of dissent that's possible in the Sukasa Empire, and everybody is tied together with this tenuous thread of, well, you could survive under me. Um, I'm gonna revive strong people, so you know that we're gonna be strong. And there's like this underlying thing of you don't want to be against me, so you might as well join me. Because everybody's like, when he woke me up, I was scared. you know, I didn't want to fight him, so I just joined him. And you can see that with them using Lillian's voice to recruit um, the guard who was assigned to watch over Taiju and Yuzuria, because she's basically their security guard. I mean, their guard, their prison warden, because they were still under watch. If Senku is alive, if there's a possibility that he's alive, then we can't let them just roam free. So they were very diligent in making sure that they didn't get caught. And it shows that Taiju is in like a screaming dumb oath because he was able to go undercover for over a year, and avoid capture. But yeah, man, that was an interesting thing as well. But again, you could see like that all warfare is based on deception thing. Like Senku uses deception to get what he wants throughout this whole thing. It wasn't like malicious. It was just, I need to get this thing done, and he lets you know what the deal is. But this was like his first instance of like outright lying to someone at the behest of Gin, and you could see like the different aspects of him getting shown to you based on who he's interacting with, because otherwise you wouldn't know not much about Senku other than the science piece. A quick side voice actor, because he was a voice actor in one of my favorite shows, Yu Yu Hakusho. Like he voiced like 5, 6 characters in that show. So when I heard his voice, I was like Leonardo DiCaprio, like that, that that's the boy from Yu Yu Hakusho. Yeah. But yeah, man, they started the Stone Wars, they started their information warfare, and Chrome uses a battery to basically break himself out of prison. He uses the acid in the battery to melt the vines that's tying together his prison bars, and he breaks free. And I think he starts a fire, you know. But when he breaks free, the guy who was basically assigned to watch his prison cell, Yo, who was basically he was a psychopath. He was like, all right, the bad guy. If he's a bad guy, I could kill him. Because he used to be a cop back in the day, but he got fired for shooting someone. And he was like, the bad guy's running away, so I shot him. Bang. He was proud of it. He talking to supervisors like, you ain't do nothing wrong. You know what I mean? It's like, what's the problem? The bad guy shot him. Yeah, so they had him watching Chrome, but Chrome basically convinces him that he has a terminal illness, so he's not afraid of dying, and it's highly contagious. So that's how he gets. So you could see like Chrome thinking on his feet, you know. But yeah,
Yeah, he be thinking on his feet, but I mean that's basically because of Senku's guidance, because that's how Senku thinks. You know what I'm saying? He's under basically his tutelage, so he's like, man, I got this illness or whatever. but he's able to rendezvous with Magma and them, to get himself out, um, and what happens? They build a tank, a tank build it, well, we gonna go back, we're gonna invade, but we're gonna invade with a tank, you know. I thought the tank was cool, and you see how they use, steam, and like we say, they going through the tech tree, they use the steam engine and things like that, and they're making a tank, in a sense, but it's nothing, to hurt anybody. It's basically to um, put fear in everybody, in a sense, and they invade, Sukasa's land. But then you understand, I guess you see, when basically Sukasa finally, you could say, surrenders or whatever, uh, he finally tells basically Senku why he's doing everything, because he found his sister, Mirai, and he's like, can you save her? And he's like, yeah, I can save her. It's easy for him. He's like, it's like work. Oh, it's like work. He's, and then, basically the Storm War is over, in that sense. Once, he's able to, and basically that was I guess the whole point of Senku's reason for invading was basically to have no casualties, and to basically have a peaceful solution to where they can become friends and things like that, and work together and build together. You know what I'm saying? And he finally found out what was basically Sukasa's issue that needed to be fixed, because he couldn't do it. All he could do is, he found the sister, but he couldn't revive her because then she'd be sick again, or whatever. That's what he was worried about. So he just kept her body, her stone body, unscathed, or away from harm, you know. But other than that, he couldn't do anything. He had to let her stay like that, stay in that state. But with Senku, he can heal. He can heal like the miracle worker or whatever, you know. Um, so yeah, man. I mean, I like the Stone Wars. It was a lot, man. It's a lot to talk about when it comes to this. But the fact that he was using, like, it's Gen's being basically voicing over Lilia, uh, to fool and trick people, was very, very, very just
It was
fun.
strategic.
It
Yeah,
was strategic,
it
but
was strategic.
also it was also like, because Sukasa's like a tyrant in a sense. He doesn't know what really moves people. You know what I'm saying? And then you see, these people like, man, I'm scared of them, but you offer me something better, I'll go to your side.
Yeah,
Same with Yen.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? I don't want to kill nobody. You know what I'm saying? But if you can offer me a peaceful means, I'll join your side. They were they were voted worse than first 48 in a sense. You know what I'm
yeah.
talking about? Like,
But you gotta
they had no law.
you gotta really look at who they were before they were petrified. And you could see it with I think there was one of the people, because on the side note, like on the side, um Senku had Yuzuria, who was super diligent. He had her putting together all of the pieces for the statues that Tsukasa was shattering. So he wanted her to put together the pieces, because his theory was, as long as you can put them together before you depetrify them, then the depetrification process would heal them, because that's what happened to him. They had noticed, and that's what happened to Yuzuria, because they revived her, but it was like some parts of her hand or her foot that weren't really depetrified, and when they poured the miracle fluid on it, it actually healed whatever injury she had. you know And the same thing happened with Senku when he's like killed the first time. Tsukasa strikes him on the back of his neck, but he was doing this, like cracking his neck, like for the whole show. So he's like signaling to him, subconsciously, like this is where you need to strike. But there's actually a piece of stone that wasn't really revived in the back of his neck, and that's what got struck. That's why he didn't die. So but he was still like he still had a lot of physical trauma from just the force of the blow. So as soon as Taiju and Yuzuriya poured the miracle fluid on that, he was revived. So that was the theory behind reviving Minami, Sukasa's sister. If we could get this miracle fluid on her, whatever issues she has is going to get healed also in the depetrification process. And it kind of gives a clue as to maybe um, one of the motivating factors behind the whole process to begin with. It's like a theory you could form, but you can't really confirm it until you finish watching the show. Because what if someone was making this whole like that green light? What if that was a way to heal all of the sickness on the planet? But as a side effect, everybody got petrified. It could raise questions like that. But what happens is they go to the hospital or to the site of the hospital where his sister was, and they basically they dig up her body, and they put some clothes on her before they revive her, and then like Yuzuriya makes the clothes on the spot. I don't know how she does it, but she whips her some clothes, put the clothes on her, they pour the miracle fluid, and she's actually fully recovered. And that's what like breaks Tsukasa, and he's like, all right, like I ain't fighting y'all no more, but I haven't changed my mind about reviving people. I'm still on. I'm breaking everybody. You know what I mean? But this is like a temporary ceasefire. That's what they agreed to. And Hyogo, who basically wants the number one spot, but he knows he can't beat Tsukasa in a straight up fight. He's going along with it because the thing that got their attention was the creation of nitroglycerin, which they made from the nitric acid. That's how they got all the fighting and stuff. So when they see that big explosion, it's like, well, time to call it a day. So he makes this whole explosion. It's like, all right, cool, yeah, we ain't fighting no more. But Hyogo waits for Tsukasa to let his guard down because he has a system now. He's much more tender. He's much less tense and alert, and he basically stabs him through the lungs. And
Uh-oh. Think we lost Master Antonio. Gotta wait for him to come back. But yeah, you got him. You know what I'm talking about. But whoa, yeah, truly frozen. But anyway, he he gets stabbed, But that's what happens, I always gotta be yeah. I always gotta be wary of the number two, because if they see you being weak, and they see you ain't doing it right, they'll get you. You know what I'm talking about, and that's what you see. In the sense, um, which is it, which you know, it sort of shows that he ruled, with a tight iron fist, so he couldn't be laxed. And then, now that he got what he wanted, he was relaxed, and he never thought, in the back of his mind, yeah, I have my sister, but these people follow me because I'm the I'm I'm the baddest, dude, they know, but if they see me being weak, they'll come from my spot. You see it in the animal kingdom, many times. So I mean, that's really what happened. And you know, I mean, okay. So, I mean, for me, it's like, no, like, not Sukasu. It's like, he might have turned over a new leaf or something, you know? He may have stopped being the being the antagonist in that sense, but you don't really know, because they got him, but other than that, okay. So for me, that is that's pretty much, you ask me, that's the Stone Wars. That's season two. Because basically after that we get into sailing. you know them them learning, getting into boats and things like that, you know manga stuff. you know get into manga stuff, once the Stone Wars are over with, then we get into things like that and selling, and if they'll have a season three. I don't know if season three has been greenlit yet, but um it should, because it was very popular. So that's all there is to it. But um it's down below. So when it's just me, I hope, but now it's like, this is a this is a duo, this is a duet. I can't see those lies, but yeah. Um, okay, hold on. Here he comes. Hey, bro, thanks for coming back, because I was worried. I'm like, this song is a duet. I can't do this by myself. you know, this is a duet, and I can't. We supposed to be singing this in 5-part harmony, and I'm choir boy. I can't be singing Eddie K's at the same lead, But yeah, bro, they got him. But I was just saying, man, you gotta be worried of number two. You know what I'm talking about? And but I also blamed Sukasa for being relaxed, because he got what he wanted. He stopped having drive. You know what I'm saying? Or he had nothing else to drive him in that sense. Everything was for his sister, and um, now that he had that, hey, the streets called for him in a sense. You know what I'm talking about? They was ready for him. I.e., his number two, man. He thought of, but this is the thing. He couldn't read people like Senku could. He just thought about reviving the strong. And there's a downside to it, in a sense where you don't really know what people are thinking, or you don't know their intentions. And just because they were with him doesn't mean they were with him, in that sense. So, and you sort of see that with who he's, well, with those around him and those who he revived. They were easily turned, but it was with Senku. But this time, it wasn't going like that. This time it wasn't going like that. Somebody was like, "Oh, I'm coming for your crown, B." And paid in full. I just thought about it. Dang, it's sort of in a sense. Just where, look, here I am thinking about it now. Look, he's like, "Yo, B, I just need to move this weight so I can get my little brother. And once we do that, we back on, B. Oh, you got the bricks on with you right now? Dang. Oh well." so, so yeah, like, hold on, let me bring it back. You there, bro?
Yeah, my bad. We had power outage. Yeah, that's what happens when you live in the middle of the ocean on a small rock. Yeah, we had a power
Yeah,
outage,
bro.
so you might hear a generator outside.
Oh no, bro, you good, you good. I figured that anyway, but I mean, hey, it is what it is, you know. But hey, that's resourcefulness, you know what I'm talking about. So hey, man, that just goes to show because when you hear, you know, there's blackout, you stuck in the dark. Better have a candle and flashlight or something.
Yeah, man. Yeah, exactly. Well, at least we don't have like two dudes outside sweating themselves to death. You know, we got technology.
Just turning and turning and turning. You
Yeah.
know.
Oh, you know, it was one point that I thought was really key that we didn't touch on. When Chrome and what was his name, Kikyo or Kaseki? When Chrome and Kaseki made the water wheel without Senku, you know, they understood the principle, so they made it. They didn't start out by saying we're gonna make a water wheel. They just was like, okay, this principle helps us to um, make perpetual energy, so let's make it on a larger scale, you know. And it was at that moment when Senku really realized how much of a genius Chrome was, because he didn't even know um, that someone had done it before. He just stuck to the principles. You know, that's how much faith he had in the process, which I thought was really, really key in terms of sometimes when we're doing planning. And I was talking to one of my classmates because she had a different class where she had to like make a blog and she was like stuck at the title. And I was like, well, don't get stuck on the title. But because I'd done so much writing before, even in terms of the odd jobs I would do. I was like, do the title last. You know, just focus on what you want to say and just put the title there last. But sometimes we get caught up on this is my plan, you know, nominally, you know, this is the name of my plan. But you forget about the steps. And one of the things that Senku says was it doesn't matter, you know, what the situation is. If you follow all of the steps, and you don't deviate from them, you will succeed 1 billion% of the time. Like this 1 billion, but 1 billion% of the time, you know, as long as you follow the steps the way that they're laid out. You know, people like to take shortcuts, and that's why they wind up with you know, half-baked products. But I don't know what I missed. I don't know where you at, so I don't want to cover anything that you already covered.
Oh no, bro. I just said, you know, he had to be wary of his number two because that's how he got.
Oh, okay, yeah, 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 definitely. Number two, stab them in the heart, you know, or stab them in the lungs. And Homura was also able to escape because what's his name? Yo had let her go. You know, the guy was like, he was basically like, F this. I ain't going back to a Super Saiyan field. So he just left. And he was going through the bush and he found Homer's cage and he let her out. But basically, Hyogo takes he, Tsukasa, and Senku. They all go over the waterfall, and they all wind up washed up on shore somewhere, and they basically duke it out. So here it is. There's no way that Senku could be Hyogo 1-on-1, you know, and Tsukasa has a hole in his chest, you know, but they basically join forces to take him out. You know, Tsukasa is basically on Kyoga's level, and he's declining fast because he's losing a lot of blood. And Tsukasa is just like making, like he's MacGyvering this whole fight. You know, he's just coming up with different ideas to use what he has. He winds up making like a very high powered voltage from something that he's wearing around his chest. I can't remember what it was exactly. It might have been the cell phone, but I can't remember exactly what he was wearing under his vest. But he was able to basically electrocute and immobilize Hugo long enough for them to subdue him. You know, but here it is now. Tsukasa is mortally wounded, and everybody knows that he's dying. And now the new plan is to basically nurse his wounds, but also to repetrify him. So now they're going to freeze him. They're going to make a refrigerator. They want to freeze him. Put him in cryostasis. Learn this petrification process and how to make it. Because again, once you petrify someone and depetrify them, all of their wounds are healed. So that was like the next big thing. But it's unclear whether or not Tsukasa is even gonna survive, because as they're doing this, he and Senku are having a conversation, and you can see like they really get along. Like they only butt heads on one thing. You know what I mean? But other than that, they're real cool with each other. They have a very similar way of thinking, and they basically it's the aspect of forgiveness that Chief had also spoken about in most stories. You have people who have an opportunity to go through forgiveness. So despite all the things that happen, even Tsukasa says, well, I already killed you once, so it only makes sense for you to return the favor. When he's putting them on the stasis, because he's like, you might die. He's like, I already killed you. So, that's the level of candor that they can have with each other. Nothing strengthens a friendship more than a fight, I guess. A little bit of conflict. But yeah, after they put Super Saiyan into the stasis, ostensibly, because we don't get like confirmation, they set out to the new world. They're like, all right, we're gonna build a ship and we're gonna explore this world and see what else we can find. I think that's where that season ends off.
Yeah, it is because that's in a whole. That one's in a whole different art. They at least in the manga, that starts a whole different art when they start, sailing. Like I said, I was like, man, once that happens, it's on to sailing and acting like we scientific pirates or something. But know, but yeah, man. I mean, in that sense, sometimes you never know somebody unless you fought with them or had a conflict with them. But sometimes you could probably get along with somebody, and it just takes some like a core principle to have y'all have a falling out, or to differ, to where y'all stop being friends. And that's what happens with Tsukasa and Senku. you know, even in season one, you could tell that they could have been best. They could have been friends, but they both had different ideologies and different core values in that sense that they couldn't stand together on. And then here you are. Once those, I guess, the things that separated them faded away, then they become like best friends. Like you wouldn't even know they were enemies, and whatnot. And you have Senku, trying to save him, and he's not malice like, man, you try to kill me or anything like that. He's like, they joking about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, I tried to kill you, man. Yeah. Like, I remember that. Things like that.
Yeah.
But you didn't get me though.
That was actually the most emotion you get out of Senku. And even with hearing his father's voice, you don't see him choke up that much. And it was also funny when they found out that their forefather, this is their ancestor basically. And it's like, so you trying to tell me we related? It's like, nah, I was adopted. Don't worry about it. But there was they were really close, and Senku, you could finally see it. Like you hear his voice cracking up and everything. It's like, and voice acting is really good. I didn't watch the sub. I watched the dub version. Yeah, it's very few dubs. It's very few anime where you prefer the dub. But they did the voice acting very well. And it went along with the facial expressions and everything. They chose the cast very well. But yeah, there's actually a story. I don't know how true the story is, but the principle like sort of stands where he was like, "Is this one guy on YouTube? Oh, yeah, there's this one dude on YouTube, and he was talking about martial arts, right? And he was saying his sensei had introduced him, to a different sensei, and he was like, "Okay, nice to meet you." Oh, okay, yeah, this is my student. And he put his hand out to say, "Nice to meet you." And he slapped his hand away because they're supposed to be sparring, basically. He said, "This is my student. You're going to be sparring." And I was like, "Oh, okay, nice to meet you."
Lost them again. uh, but I'm sure he'll come back. Cause oh, I
All
hear him.
right, am I back?
Yeah, I hear you.
First
your
island, man.
camera's frozen, but your voice is here.
Yeah, everything's still coming on. So I'll wait for everything to unfreeze.
Okay, okay. But yeah, man. Well, I can't continue the story if I don't know it. But yeah. Well, to continue on with it, I mean, you know, sometimes that's conflict. Um, in a sense, you know, conflict is it's just not to basically harm someone. But you could also say this it's a form of getting to know someone, possibly on a deeper level. Okay, got a question. Could Senku be considered a savior source? Meant to ask this earlier. Yeah, you could say yes, you can. Sovereignties, you could say Senku is a savior because um, he's trying to uh, save everyone. In a sense, um, everyone in basically his former world. You know, he's trying to do that. Like Sukasa's not trying to save everybody. You know, he only wants the strong. But Senku's doing everything that he's trying to do to revive everyone. You know, everyone, not just in Japan, but everyone around the world. That's why he's doing what he's doing. So yes, he is a savior, and you can say he's willing to sacrifice, you know, to save everyone, you know, because he doesn't have to do it. You know, he could be, you know, he could be like some people that, you know, like when he meets the villagers, he could basically give them a level of spookism with what he knows. And he doesn't. He shares it. You know, he shares it willingly and whatnot. But he sort of plays around like, you know, in a sense where you like, hey, you know, you're gonna work for me, but you know, we're doing this to help build a better community for everyone, including you, in a sense. You know, let's see what other question you got. Would you say Synchro reminds us of the way some of us come into the life with memory? Seems as if this memory, after waking from being petrified, is a driving source for reinventing. Yeah, because you know, Senku's not a person of emotion, so he is a person of memory because he has so much um, knowledge or information, and he remembers timelines, you know, scientific timelines in a sense, you know, maybe not historic in a sense, but if it related to science, he knows about it, and basically that's how he does what he does, you know, with building these sort of things because he has that memory. And he's like, well, I know that it took us this long, the first time, but it's not going to take us this long because I have the memory to basically go through the steps quicker because I don't have to go through trial and error that much, because everything's been done for me, So because I would say he has a knowledge of old or even you could say dead information. He's able to oh he's able to use it to revitalize and bring it back where it was gone and nobody knew about it anymore, with all the experiments he was doing. So that's why I would say that. Oh, you want to answer the question? I can, Master Antonio.
I'm reading it now. Yeah, got another outage. They can slow me down, but they can't stop me. I'm back at it again.
Can't stop, won't stop.
Can't stop the prophet. Would you say that Senku reminds us of the way some of us come into life with memory? It seems as if this memory, after waking from being petrified, is a driving force, a source for reinventing. Um, I would say it's more of a reminder to stay awake. Um, going back to the point that I had made earlier, based on what Chief had broken down, in his segment, which is a really good one in terms of how you should see a movie or even a story of your own life. Senku is a reminder to stay awake. Because both Taiju and Senku, they stayed awake for their own reasons. Taiju stayed awake because of desire, and Senku stayed awake because of duty. He thought it was yeah. All right, we still good. All right. Senku knew that it was very important for them to be aware of how long they were asleep, and also even knowing like what year and what time of year it was. Like if they wake up in the spring, it's certain things they got to do. If they wake up in the winter, it's certain other things they got to do. So like he was more on the lines of being pragmatic, you know, and yeah, I would say with Senku, it even took a huge amount of brain power for him to do that. And I'm not totally clear on Senku's theory, but he had theorized that all of that thinking, it takes like brain power, but he wasn't eating, so where was he getting all his energy from? So he was hypothesizing that a lot of the energy was actually coming from that petrified rock that was encasing him, and that actually helped him to break out sooner than everyone else, along with the nitric acid that was dropped on him from the bats, near the cave. So all of that was like really fascinating. Like I'm gonna wait for the authors to clarify what he meant. Actually, I'm just gonna read the manga. Like I was telling Brother Low, I'll get the manga, and read through that. But yeah, that's what I would say to that question. Willfully, that answers it. Just a mock show.
Yeah, bro. Like I say, man, you can get more than 12 volumes because there's more than 12 volumes out. Shoot, more than six. I think we on 20 yet. I don't know. No, you can get to 16 though.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's like I say, the man, I got into it for the artwork, and not only that, I like I say, the same mangaka that did it, Boichi. Like I watched the anime I Shield 21, which is like the only football
Oh,
anime that I've ever seen, and I don't mean soccer, just for those that
yeah,
refer to football as soccer. No, it's actually football, American football, and that was the only one I ever see. It's old, but it is the series is very long, but I got into it, or at least got into his art by watching that, because it was about football. It's the same thing like with Slam Dunk, and the
yeah.
other one. the other one that they came out with that's about basketball, you know. But they have some baseball anime too, because baseball is kind of big in Japan. But
Yeah, that's one of the interesting things. Like I was mentioning earlier, like there's a lot of different genres to anime. Anime is like an umbrella term for anything that you make based on a comic book. You can make a comic book out of anything, you know. But yeah, sports and animes are interesting. You know, like you know, like the boxing anime, Hajime no Ippo, which is really cool, and like you got a couple of them out there.
Megalobox.
Regular box, another one. Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, I wonder if, huh? I don't know. That might be on the list. It's pretty short.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Well, yeah. Because Hajime Ippo, you gotta find those seasons, but
That one,
Megalobox for sure.
yeah, that one's still ongoing from like the 90s. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah. Megalobox is like 10 episodes. Okay, so it did answer your question. Good. Oh, I didn't see the other question. I don't know. Could Senku be considered a savior of sorts? Did you answer that one?
Yeah, I say yeah, just because he was out to save everyone, where
Mhm.
Sukasa was only out to save the strong, you know. But he did everything so he could revitalize, like I say, the whole world. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, it just wasn't for the people in Japan. It was for everyone, you know. But he was using this well, his knowledge and things like that. It was for everyone. So that's why I say, yeah, he's a savior in essence.
Yeah, I would see them both as like that coin of Lucifer and Christ. You know, you have one that's there, you know, on the incline, and one that like fell into the dust. They both fell into the dust. You know what I mean? But one of them decided um, they were going to save everyone. The next one decided that they were going to do what it took to basically try to preserve purity. But in that sense, like they could both be saviors too, you know, because they were both moving based on their own selfish reasons. You know, you could say Senku was driven to preserve life, or you could also say Senku was driven by his curiosity because he wanted to know what was going on with the petrification in the first place. And this anime makes it very clear that no one really does um, good for goodness sake after a certain period of time. After a certain period of time, especially when it comes to war, you can see people doing. You break one law to uphold another law. You know, like so you lie to people that you were loyal to in order to save your own skin, but that's just because you don't want to kill anyone. You know, so it's like, are you doing this because of law, or are you doing this because of primal instinct and a drive to survive? You know, so that's a question that you could ask too. Like, it's easy to be moral when you're comfortable. You know, it's hard to be moral when you got a gun in your face. You know, all day, every day. You know, the gun being nature. You know what I mean? It's hard to be moral then because you're like, well, I can just eat him. Why I gotta grow food when I can just eat him? You know what I mean?
Yeah, bro. It's you look when you said that, I was like, Snowpiercer. I watched Snowpiercer like the movie yesterday because I never watched it, and they that's what they were talking about. Like, man, we I know what human beings taste like. You know what I'm talking about? He was like, I literally know what human beings taste like. You know, and whatnot, and just telling the Korean guy the story on how he met or basically raised his lieutenant in a sense, you know what I'm talking about, and who you know, and who helped him from stop eating, you know, him when he was a baby, but he killed his mom. That's a different movie. But it made me think about that. It's like, oh yeah, just watched that yesterday. So yeah, for sure, bro.
I was just reading that. Yeah, I was just reading that. So, Sovereignty says another film actually comes to mind, actually came to mind as I consider being petrified. And Noah the Fallen Angels became encased in rock, but move around their earthbound rock encasement when they choose to. Oh, okay, so you're saying the fallen angels were encased in rock, but they can still move, but they only move when they chose to. Humans again, maybe they decided. Yeah, I never saw that movie. I never saw or even heard of Snowpiercer either.
Oh, bruh, it's a TV show and a movie. It's a TV show and a movie. I've seen both. I started. Uh, I saw the movie. Well, I saw the movie, like I said, yesterday for the first time. But I watched the second season of Snowpiercer. It's not the same as the movie, but then you have to probably understand that it had a Korean director. With the movie. So I pretty much
Really?
understood. Yeah, because I was reading it. I was like, I know that name. That's so And I was listening to it. They were speaking Korean. I can pick it up because he was like I was like, yep, that's father. So I was like, yep, I already know. So for
Yeah,
sure.
we need security in the chat room, like right quick.
Yeah, what's that?
But
I got it.
yeah, once you see those Koreans, one thing I got to say about Eastern film or media in general, they they put you in a really a novel psychological space with the premise for their movies, because it's like thought patterns that you wouldn't really think about. Like, a lot of Korean films do that, where you see a lot of like there was one where I think it is like a baby or a young boy. He was like basically taken in by 3 hitmen or 4 hitmen, and I'm sure you know this movie, Lo. I don't know the name of it, but basically,
Monster Boy. What is it? What's it called? Oh my
I
goodness.
I don't know the name.
Something.
I saw the premise, but I don't know the name. But he basically they try to raise him to be a contract killer, you know, and he knows all these assassination techniques, but he doesn't like to kill people, you know. So he has like he basically has like 3 fathers. You know, one of them is very nurturing and caring. The next one is like in the middle. The next one's real harsh to him. And then I don't want to spoil it. It's a good film. If I find it, I'll send it to you.
I know what you're talking about. I had it on my wish list, but I didn't watch it. But I know the premise. Like I planned on watching it. But yeah, man. I mean, look, me personally, I could go. It's like uh the movie Parasite, right? That won like Oscar, for movie of the year and whatnot. And it just came out of nowhere. But I already knew Korean films were that good anyway. But because I knew the actors in that damn movie anyway, I was like, yeah, I know that one, I know that one. Oh, I know how I would see many of her movies or TV shows, something like that, and or like one of the actors that plays the father, or the rich father in that movie. I was like, man, it was cool to see because I've always seen him in TV shows, and he usually is like the secondary, side character, that's always comical, but then I have a serious role. It was real cool to see. So
Yeah,
but
I'm
yeah, they
like,
put you in space.
yeah, I'm like that with different animes. I'd be like, I know that voice. I heard that voice before. You know what I mean?
See.
Yeah. Actually, Taiju's character, as well as Byakuga's character, the voice actor, he had passed away recently, and he had voiced. Here it comes, though. He had voiced one of the main characters in Hunter x Hunter, right? So, yeah, he had done the voice of Leorio and a bunch of other well-known voices in different shows, But he had passed away during the making of that, and it's interesting to see as well. You have all of these people who come together to make these shows possible, and like Chief was saying about, immersing you into the experience. I always thought it was fascinating when like someone who voices a character passes away, and they try to do like the game thing. They try to see like, all right, let's see if they'll notice this is a different person's voice. Like prime example was Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is next month. When Mako died, and he's the voice for Uncle Iroh. I think he died after season two. So they had to do the whole season three with a different character. With a different voice actor, I should say.
Yeah, but it was different. But that's because Michael, he was an actor first before he was a voice actor.
Yeah.
So he has his own, he has his own raspy voice. You be like, oh man, this dude from such. This dude from Conan,
This are
and
cool.
things like that. And I cool and things like that. So you be like, that's not Mako. Like that's not him. It's just like, hold on, like uh, um, it's just like okay, you see sub actresses in movies. You may not know them, but you know their body parts. Like I know that actress. I know them hips. Like I know them hips. You really be like that. You be like, oh, I know them hips anywhere. Well, I was like that with who? I think it was no, I wasn't Virginia. What was that chick? Chick from DC. I could, yeah, but she like she would play in these black movies. Only why I say she chick from DC is because she was on BET Award. Her name's Regina as well, but I forget her last name. It don't matter. But I was like, what was that? Oh, I know her. I know her. I know the hits anywhere. I said that out loud in front of everybody. I was like, but what's her name?
Oh man, yeah, well, but yeah, give thanks to everybody for coming out. Like I said, we got to get the team together if we doing Avatar last year. Y'all put me on blast last year. I didn't like that. How you doing?
Hey, I'm always we just need a team meeting. That's all. I'm always free for it. You know what I'm talking about? But that's all. We just put the team meeting together and it'll work. Because probably with that you still gonna have to if we're doing it by elements and not by if we're doing it by elements and not by the actual series, it can be for the whole month, respectfully, if you think about it. So I mean, it all depends on how you want to go about it. You know what I'm talking about?
I called dibs on fire.
You already did. I already knew that. You can't lie. You just want to make sure you get fired.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
I'm surprised I didn't see Sister Deidre in the chat yet.
She was, but I think she left. But yeah, she was there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, next strong we are doing Infinite, and it's MR Lee's request.
Right,
I wanted to make sure I get her request out. You gotta gotta show love to the old, to the elder ones and whatnot, so they don't feel unwanted, and then they'll never let you forget it.
She won't let you forget. Yeah, she already hitting that in the chat. I was like, all right, she putting on that arm twister tone of voice. Like, I'm gonna twist your arm until you give me this movie.
Give me this movie. Yeah. So yeah, that's
Oblivion, right? I meant to ask you about that.
Yeah, we're doing Oblivion.
Is that the one with Tom Cruise?
Yes, the one with Tom Cruise.
I saw the trailer and I was like, when I get the time, I'm gonna sit down and watch this movie. Now I'm gonna sit down and watch the movie because the premise looked interesting.
Yeah, it's futuristic, but I never really watched it, so I knew about it, but I just didn't watch it. But yeah, it's that, and then after Oblivion, we doing Sorry to Bother You. So
Sorry to
which
bother you.
yeah, I only watched it because Albert Randy told me you should watch it. And I did. know,
I thought
I found the
I only
opportunity
saw
to.
that one scene. You know what
Huh?
scene I'm talking about? I saw that one scene. You know what scene I'm talking about? You know, I hope everything good happened to you in life. You know, they doing that passive aggressive praising thing.
Oh yeah.
I think that was the movie. Sorry to bother you. What's
I
what you?
can't man. I got so many moves in my head, unless they are really memorable. Either
Yeah,
they just go right back out so I can make room for all the other memorable stuff. you know. Otherwise, I'm not able to talk to you about the day, C dramas and C movies and K dramas and all that. If like so, yeah, man. I mean, but for sure. That's what we doing. We doing Infinite next round. So
all right.
all right. So give thanks everybody, and we will see y'all next strong. But make sure you come out for Shaman New and whatnot. And we gonna get into it. You know what I'm talking about. So give thanks and peace.